Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Rachel and Simone here. You guys have been quite the dynamic duo behind NBZ, which has been helping all different types of brands really solidify their positions in the market, help them figure out their approach to really get their products to have traction, how they brand themselves, how they identify in the space. And you guys have been doing this together, and you've got a lot of great recognition for the work that you've done. And you've decided to focus on really building up small companies, and there's a lot of companies that need the assistance. So I'm excited to have you guys here and to get into your story.
We're thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So just kind of like focusing on the beginning and the foundation of this, how did you guys get interested in working together? How did you land on this idea that you wanted to help different businesses out and strategize with them and advise them? How did this whole thing kind of come together initially?
Well, luckily we did not have to conceive of the idea of working together on our own. We were thrust into that scenario. We actually were running new business together at a global branding firm, a holding company agency. I come from almost 20 years of traditional branding, running big global rebrands and also launching new to world brands. And Simone comes from an equal number of years of running growth and marketing and new business for agencies of all shapes and sizes. And so we came together really kind of with this interesting dual lens on how to create growth for, at that time, the agency, but really any company. And it's kind of this idea of brand is a powerful lever for business growth. And it's marketing 101 if you think about kind of what agencies do for their clients. But it's like the laws of physics don't apply anymore when you think about your own brand, and agencies specifically have a really hard time. Another little anecdote or metaphor that Simone and I use a lot is like, it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar. And so, it's hard to see your own brand. And when, we came together, we sort of formalized an approach around how do we weaponize the brand in service of growth. And, it was like, I describe it as like a scene from Reservoir Dogs. Everything was in slow motion. It was like win, win, win. And it couldn't have been a better time. And we forged not only an incredible partnership and sort of, business synergy, but there was also like a deep friendship from just, right off the bat. And I think we saw that we kind of share a brain in so many ways, and then we're like extremely different and have different superpowers in other ways too. And it was kind of an amazing time. And then COVID hit. And again, by virtue of circumstance, really, it was sort of like, looking around and seeing what was happening in the industry and seeing what was happening in the world, and kind of having like, more confidence in her and our partnership together than maybe any other partnership in my life, to be honest. It felt like it only made sense for us to kind of, when the world is in free fall, it's better to jump and take destiny into your own hands than to just fall. And we decided at that time, like, are we going to do this? And, pardon, I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this podcast. You can bleep me out later, but we were sort of in like a fuck it moment, It was kind of like, we have to, if not now, when? And it felt like the world was ready for it. So.
And Rachel has a much deeper, she was born with like the DNA of an entrepreneur that she like recognized throughout her life. I was much more of like, I'm going to climb that ladder. I'm going to end up at the top. And like, I can like, deal with all of the politics, and my heels are going to clink on the floors of all these big corporations. And then as I was moving up in the ranks, I was like, gosh, if only they would listen. If only everyone would listen. Why isn't everyone listening? And I guess that was like the first kind of like hint of an entrepreneurial spirit, because I just didn't have the patience anymore after doing it for 15, 18 years in corporations. And then when Rachel and I came together, she was kind of like my rock and gave me the ability to see the potential in doing this together, because you just need each other to listen to each other, and you can get so much further than the rest of the world if you do that, which is why I think we have such a passion for particularly small agencies. Yes, small businesses, but small agencies is really where we have focused. because they have the ability to not to do what they feel like is right, to make leaps based upon their gut, to do things that are perhaps riskier, more creative, and not be beholden by by archaic ways of doing things or decision processes, or models that, if anything, are holding the industry back versus pushing us forward.
Mhm. So what was it like starting out? How did you kind of get businesses to sign up with you? What were you thinking was going to be the way you translated their creative vision into strategy? And how has that kind of evolved over time?
I mean, we say, go ahead, Rachel. I think one thing that we always knew but became much clearer as we went on is your net work is your net worth. Rachel and I amassed 20 years each almost in the industry, and the people that we connected with along the way, they're the ones that started the business with us. Honestly, they were just paying in. They were our first clients, the one that we created relationships with throughout our career. And it's not that we were just, this like, Rachel and I are forces. It's not like we go through our career and everyone has to love us. We're not like saccharine. We are very much focused on, we know we have belief system. We have very strong opinions. And yes, you treat people with kindness through that, but you do not have to sacrifice, a point of view for making a network. And I think we both, even if we didn't know each other at that time, both utilize those parts of our personality, which is a strong point of view, but also an ability to pull people in to that point of view and listen and lead through that. And those are the people that ended up as our first clients.
Yeah, I'll take this as another opportunity to plug the importance of brand building, because I think that, and I don't remember which, I saw this recently on Instagram. It was like the CEO of Coca-Cola or something said it takes like 8 years to build a brand. And I think, this is NBZ is nothing if not a case study for just the power of incrementally creating awareness and leveling up and elevating the profile by building a brand and focusing on brand building, which is to say that we know exactly who we are, we know exactly why we exist, we know exactly who we're for, and we communicate that with ruthless consistency at any opportunity. I would say even prior to NBZ, and to Simone's point too, like, we had already established our individual personal brands within our network and our own sort of sphere of influence. And it was just building on that, really, and then starting to really crystallize, all right, well, if this is what we individually stand for, what happens when you put those superpowers together, and codifying that into something that lived outside of us and beyond us and has taken, honestly, a shape that I think we never even envisioned in the beginning. But it is a slow burn, right? People, I feel like even in the last couple of years, people have come up to us and said, wow, you guys are like, have exploded in the last 2 years. And it's like, yeah, but we've been doing this since 2020. And so, like, the fact that the little seed had to like really like grow underground for so long before it broke through and became something that people really, are familiar with. It's a testament to brand building, I think, at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, what you've been able to do with some of these brands that have come to you and how you're able to really put them in a different direction. What have been some of your favorite, just like initial kind of like case studies that you did? And how has your strategy evolved as you've went? Because every brand is different. Every brand has different needs. You kind of have to, I mean, you can probably have a core playbook, but every single one is almost a new puzzle to figure out.
So I think, look, at the heart of our we sort of take an oath before we work with any company. It's kind of like, I don't know, do doctors do this? Like, do no harm, right? I mean, like, our job is not to come in and make sweeping changes in service of just making everything different. It's really about extracting the DNA and the magic and the specialness that exists already within whatever company it is, and highlighting the parts of that that are relevant in the context of now. And so whether it's 100-year-old company, which we've worked with, we excavate, don't recreate, or it's a brand new to world company that, needs to maybe they've seen kind of like a meteoric rise in a short amount of time. And it's like, well, shoot, now how do I stay on top? And I never really thought about what I stand for, but I have to be able to sustain this. And so how do we build on, again, what's authentically true to who you are and connect that to what the external world really wants? And what the external world wants is going to be changing. That's an ever evolving kind of, thing. It's a moving target. Who you are, though, at least parts of it are going to stay the same no matter where you are or what era of your life you're in. I mean, I'm Rachel and I show up as Rachel to the dentist, and I show up as Rachel to my grandma's house, and I show up as Rachel to a job interview, but there'll be different versions of Rachel based on what I think you need from me. And so we help companies see themselves that way and figure out what is the magic that already exists. It's not about pretending that I'm something I'm not, because that is like the fastest way to lose. And so, our whole kind of methodology and ethos really is built on this idea of, how do we extract the magic that's there and better connect it to what's relevant in the world today. I don't know if that answers the question directly, but
No, it does. It definitely does. I mean, you also had a lot of experience, I think, doing that. I mean, you worked with brands like Intel, Colgate, General Mills. Those are some of the biggest brands in the world. You got to see up close what they do. I mean, that's a great experience to then apply elsewhere.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, big iconic brands have DNA that also needs to be sort of, extracted and pulled up to continue to be relevant, as do new to world brands that are trying to break through and disrupt and say new things that haven't been said before. So, yeah, being yourself, winning by being yourself. It sounds corny, it sounds cliche, but it really is. I mean, there's cliches for a reason, right?
100%. So Simone, when a brand comes to you, like what does the initial process look like identifying, how you want to help shape them and where they need to improve on? Like how do you kind of comb through all the things going on there?
So, look, our business has has grown tremendously in terms of the different facets of where we focus. The primary focus of NBZ is to help agencies, particularly small and mid-sized agencies, find their growth. We also help brands identify agency partners to help that will be well suited for their culture and their business objectives. So that being said, our agencies come to us and say, we are a small creative agency within and either we are being continuously recognized as a top agency in the country. And we want to make sure that we maintain that growth. Or there's agencies that come to us and say, we are a 25-year-old agency that requires an injection of rigor, right? And how do we elevate our profile given where we are right now? And so, like Rachel said, I mean, we go to the core and the DNA of that agency or that brand, I guess you could say, and really extract. And I don't mean to duplicate anything Rachel said when that police officer showed up at my door. But we really go in and extract the DNA of the agency and ensure that it is the lead note in terms of what they're bringing to market. And we say we need to make sure that what we're saying in market is true to who we are, but it's what marketers or clients are looking for. And that intersection is where the magic happens. So you could be saying anything you want about yourself, but if it's not where your consumer is looking for, if it doesn't answer a problem that the consumer is up at night thinking about, that product market fit, then you could just be saying anything. And so we go in and we extract the DNA of the agency, what makes you special, and then what is super ownable to you that marketers, that clients, that consumers care about. And we find that intersection and we take it and figure out what messages we need to be saying, where those consumers are, where those clients are, where those marketers are, where do we need to be saying it in really sharp in a sharp way, showing up in a sharp place, and ensuring that there's no waste. So we do a very kind of like both scientific way of doing it and also ensure that we're saying it at the right times, the right places, to the right consumers.
Yeah. It's interesting you focus on agencies, because like you can go direct to a lot of these brands too. Instead, you kind of want to help the agencies that help the brands, and go that route. Why did you choose to do that?
So we're agency people. I mean, Rachel and I grew up in agencies, right? So particularly I sat in the seat of growth at agencies and new business at agencies, helping them win pitches, helping them develop an outward brand, right? So we were basically internal at agencies, helping them win business, helping them figure out what their differentiator is in market, how they show up. And we basically took that area of focus and that expertise, and we create a business around it where we can work on a ton of different agencies at once, helping them kind of level up their brand and their new business efforts.
But to your point earlier about some of the, General Mills and Intel and all of that, I mean, so Simone comes from decades of running new business. I come from decades of really working on, on consumer brands mostly, and seeing the approach to whittling down a brand's DNA and crafting a positioning and crafting messaging and a communications plan around that. And then seeing how seldom that happens for agencies, right? It's almost like taking, consumer branding methodology and applying it to B2B sales in a way, right? So like thinking about how agencies, they're doing that work for clients, for brands, but they're not doing it for themselves. That was like this huge kind of, I mean, I don't want to say white space because we don't really talk about white space, honestly. We talk about making space, not finding a white space. But there was, frankly, there was a huge gap. And again, I think, it was sort of like this perfect constellation of circumstances where, we found each other, which was magic in and of itself. We found this incredible kind of gap in the industry, which almost never happens. And then COVID, which was like, this sort of destabilizing thing in so many ways, but also like shook things up in a way that allowed for a path forward where, I think created something. I mean, I know we created something really unique that has gained momentum because there's not really anything out there like NBZ. And so, and I think that is something we continue to just be super grateful for every day, honestly.
So COVID was really helpful for you.
I would say, yeah. I mean, it was definitely the thing that made this possible. I don't know, being a solopreneur, and I know you talk to a lot of different types of entrepreneurs, is a much different ball game than doing it with a partner like this. And I think, COVID for sure, but also a lot of ups and downs that come with starting your own business, and sometimes feeling like you're screaming your mission out into the ether of nothing, and kind of waiting for things to trigger. And you have to, the fact that we had each other throughout a lot of that. I mean, there's imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know, is this a good idea? Is it a stupid idea? It's a great idea. Are you kidding me? We're going to kill the day. And like, that kind of a thing, you could do it to yourself in front of the mirror. And I suggest you do if you are doing this by yourself. But I would say it's immeasurable, the power of us doing this together. And then, yeah, COVID was kind of a circumstantial support, I think. But, thank God for it all, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting companies and new ideas that happened during COVID, and it's great that you guys took advantage of that and built something. I think it's definitely good that you found this path. So with NBZ specifically now, like, what are kind of some of the future goals you have? I mean, you got this model that works for you. Are you trying to go and sign up more agencies to work with you? You're trying to go and partner with more brands, or is it more of just like, how do we implement the kind of just different strategies that are coming out more and more with the existing clients we have? Like, what does the future hold?
So since we created NBZ 5 years ago, or I guess it's almost 5.5 years ago now, we developed two other parts of the business that so all three parts of the business ladder up to, we exist for the unusual suspects of the industry, which is really defined as the independent, small and mid-sized agencies, and helping shine a light on them, right? So think about helping to shine a light on smaller brands, because that they are inventing and innovating and at the forefront of what is pushing the industry forward. And so two things that we've created since, that we are continuously putting, fuel on the fire for those two parts of the business as well. The agency growth consulting part, it's just me and Rachel. And so we have a limit to how many of those white glove kind of relationships we can have at any certain point, and we invest a lot of time into those. But we created something called NBZ Plus, which is a community, it's a network, it's a membership platform for the new business people and the leaders of these small, mid-sized agencies. We felt like there was a gap in terms of education, in terms of community, in terms of transparency within this cohort of agencies that are basically that are, if you think about it, they're much better together than they are apart. But there's this sense within our industry that you need to be so isolated in order to compete. And that's just not the modern way of doing business right now. And so we created a community, we created a network. We have this ongoing Slack channel, which is really the center of the communication. We have about 75 agencies on there right now. And they're continuously communicating, talking, being transparent, not about things that are going to negatively impact their business if they talk about it, but things that are going to make all of them better at being, the top new business or the top heads of these agencies. There's Time with Me and Rachel that is embedded in that membership program. There is, all kinds of frameworks that we have amassed over the years that we put up there that are open for download. There's events that we do that are both digital events like virtual and also real world events. So pouring fuel on that fire is really important for us. And we think through partnerships and through marketing, honestly, to agencies. And so that kind of community kind of membership program is supplemental, to our more white glove growth consulting. And then lastly, we created something called NBZ Plus, which I mentioned earlier, which is really about matching brands, Fortune 500 brands, to these unusual suspects of the industry, to the agencies that are pushing new ways of doing business. Yes, they know business as usual, but they're innovating past that and taking these Fortune 500 brands and showing them other solutions for their agency business, so they don't necessarily have to go big holding company agencies that for different types of problems and different types of challenges and new launches, there are perhaps different types of agencies that would be better suited given their focus, given their modernity, given their innovation, and different ways of working. So those are the three areas of NBZ. We've been pretty busy over the past 5 years. So now it really is about pouring fuel, like I said, on those, fires. And also Rachel and I have been doing a lot of kind of thought leadership as well and developing a bit of kind of a media strategy or media platform for NBZ that allows us to take all sides of the business that we are in a unique position to see and to communicate what we're learning. Because again, it's such a separated industry, and there's not enough conversation. And Rachel and I are trying to be the transparency within that.
We also both had babies last year, so no shortage of things to do in our lives. But to Simone's point, we are in production now. We're producing a docuseries, a really limited kind of docuseries, a couple of episodes this year on the industry because it's such an interesting time and because the unusual suspects. The meaning of that continues to get dimensionalized as time goes on. And at one time it was used to just describe a certain kind of agency, but we're seeing, brands are looking to do things differently also. And so really kind of honing in our value proposition and our own messaging and our own kind of approach to thought leadership and media in service of the unusual suspects, both agencies and brands.
Yeah, that's going to be great to kind of shed light on what happens. I think people don't really know what's going on, and the collaboration aspect you mentioned too, Simone, is very it's very good. I'm sure to bring these people together, to have them share ideas. I mean, business is competitive, but bringing people together, there's a lot of value that can be added both sides that can overcome some of these traditional tendencies. So just like the last question I have, what are some of the goals you have at this point? Like short-term goals, long-term goals? What is like the 5 to 10 year roadmap look like?
I mean, 5 to 10 year. I mean, like we've talked. It could be anything, honestly. I mean, there's no end. We have so many ideas and so many things. We might sell the company and go start doing real estate together. Who knows? I mean, I'll tell you this. Stay tuned because whatever it is, it'll be with the two of us together. This is a partnership that only wins whatever we put our minds to. So we do have a lot of plans for NBZ. Definitely some things on the horizon. I think again, we'll always be focused on how to make this industry, the marketing industry in general, better and more fit for what is going on in the world today, and so constantly looking for ways to continue to deliver on that. And like I said, we might be out there selling you your next house in Boca here if you're not Who knows?
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, guys, and taking the time and doing this. I think that it's great that you've found this unique niche that can really help a lot of different businesses and agencies out and give them a lot of resources, build a strong community around them, and advise them on what they need to do to succeed, especially in a market that's always changing all the time. And you're able to apply your skills there. And so I'm excited to see what you'll continue to build together and just what's going to come next. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much
Thank you.
for us.